Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you will find a seat, and this is not the Baptist church, you can sit up front. Or any other kind of church, you can sit up front. Patty gave me the great honor tonight of introducing our guest speaker. I've known Dr. Kedar now for what, 4 years?
4 to 5 years.
4 to 5 years, yes. We met through Dr. Richard Swire, I think, at Shabbat in Venice. Is that right?
Chabad.
Sorry.
And then afterwards you can go to Home Depot.
At any rate, we are very honored tonight to have Dr. Mordechai Kedar here with us from Israel. He is a retired Israeli defense colonel in the intelligence area. He's currently teaching and has been for about 14 years now at Bar Ilan University in Israel, and probably knows more about Israel than anybody in this area. And we are fortunate at least once or twice a year to have Dr. Kedar come and visit with us. This was kind of a surprise visit. We don't normally see him this time of year. He's smart enough to stay in Israel, where it's really cool this time of year. Right? So he came to share the Florida heat with us in July instead of the normal visit, which is in February. You will be returning in February?
Inshallah.
For those who don't know, and I'm hoping most of you don't, Inshallah is Arabic for God willing. But what it really means is I'm going to sit here and do nothing, and if God wills it, he'll come down and make it happen. Is that about right? Okay. Without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Mordechai Kedar.
Welcome back.
You know, there are not many places in the world where I feel at home. This is one of them. Barbara, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much, Perry Walsh, for arranging this. Tony Lefko, Frank Pomerantz for being here, and Abby Davis, and Steve, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start to speak about the topic of the migration, I would like to raise a different point about how to think about Islam. What do I mean? Every culture, every society has its own toolbox. And the toolbox means the tools by which people think, behave, evaluate. Like, first of all, language is different in different societies. Rules of the social game. You know, space which you keep from somebody when you talk to him are different from society to society, because every society has its own role, how much space you keep for somebody. Rules of dress code. There are societies where people are walking around totally naked, and it's okay. In Africa, in South America, some tribes, and it's okay. In our society, it's unacceptable, illegitimate. So the tool, which is named dress code, is different, totally different in our societies and in those societies in Africa or South America. The way you evaluate things, what is important in life, what is not important in life. The scale of priorities is another tool which every culture, every society has its own tool. In one society, employment and a house and a swimming pool in the backyard stands in the top of the scale of priorities, while in other societies, other things like to get killed for Allah is something is the top of the desires. So definitely the scale of priorities differ from culture to culture. The role of religion in society is another thing which is different between different societies. There are societies like here where religion is viewed as something which should not play a major role. So this is why you can have a candidate to presidency whose daughter is Jewish, and it's not, nobody makes a fuss out of it. Joe Lieberman was once, his name was mentioned as candidate for vice presidency. Okay, so what if it's Jewish? Bernie Sanders almost became the nominee of the Democrats. So what? It means that in this society, you can be Mormon like Mitt Romney, you can be Christian, you can be Jewish. Okay, but still, it's not the major issue. There are societies, especially in the Middle East, where the first thing which you are evaluated by is your religion. Within most of the Muslims, if you are a Muslim, you are one of us. If you are not, get lost. Okay? Because you are not one of us. So the role of religion in society, in defining people, is totally different here in America compared to societies in the Middle East. It means the tool, which means the religion, or the role of religion, is totally different in the toolbox of the Middle Eastern here. Now, why do I say this? Too many times, and in too many occasions, people try to understand another culture by using their own toolbox. Means looking at the other cultures through their own lens or through their own culture. Means they try to evaluate those by using the ruler of our society, whatever our is. And this is a big mistake, because you cannot understand other societies if you try to evaluate them in rulers of different societies. Just like everybody understands that in order to take care of your, let's say, Chevrolet, you go to a garage of Chevrolet. You don't go to a garage of BMW. Because it's a different culture, different tools, different training, different spare parts, different computer, even the interface cannot be connected to the car. Okay? So whoever understands that Chevrolet needs a garage of Chevrolet, and BMW will go only to the garage of BMW, should understand that problems in America you solve with American tools, while problems in the Middle East you solve with Middle Eastern tools, and you cannot use American tools in order to solve problems in the Middle East, because it's different culture, different spare part, different everything. Now, why do I elaborate on this issue? When people try to understand the question of hijra, of the immigration, they usually look at the issue from their own culture. This country was established by immigration. The people here are immigrants, or either them, or their parents, or grandparents, or maybe one generation earlier. That's it. Okay, so for most of the people in America, immigration is part of our being American. Being American means that you came with your suitcase to Ellis Island or to the parallel in the West Coast, and you forwarded your forms and you got your American citizenship. Since then, you're American, and this is how things work. So, what's the difference between Jews, Christians, and others, and Muslims? Means the equation between Muslims and others is natural, because this country was made by immigrants. So that's why in this country, too often people don't understand what's the problem with Islamic immigration. The same thing in Canada, which is another immigration country. Australia is the same, because all these countries was made by immigrants. But for this, you have to understand how they look at the immigration, not as you look at it, as an American. You have to evaluate it according to their toolbox, not according to you. This was the first note. The second note is, if a group of Israelis, Zionists, come to this country in order to become Americans, immigrate to these Americans, to become Americans, I would say that it's okay. America could absorb them, could accept them, and if they are good people and they are not involved in crime and so forth, they can be granted the American citizenship after a while. But if this group of Israelis, Zionists, come to America in order to divert America into a Zionist country or Jewish country, I would tell Americans, take them, put them on the first flight to Israel, and send them back home. America does not need anyone to come to turn America into a Jewish / Zionist country. America has its own ideas, America has its own views, its own direction. America does not have to be converted to neither Judaism nor Zionism. Okay? And I'm saying as a religious Jew and a Zionist. Okay? If Israelis come here in order to change America, send them home. If a group of Chinese come to this country in order to become American citizens and to contribute to the economy and society, no reason why to reject them. But if that group of Chinese are coming in order to turn America into a communist country and to change the regime into a communist regime, I'm not sure that America should tolerate it, because America has its own democratic views, and I don't see why America should change its nature from democratic country to a communist country. So the same thing should be with those Chinese. If they are coming to be Americans, it's okay. If they are coming to change America into something else, I think that America should put them on the first flight to Beijing and return them to where they feel much more comfortable living in a communist country. The same thing I would say about Muslims. If they come here in order to become Americans and to be part of the American fabric and to contribute to the American economy, society, whatever, so really no reason to reject them, as long as they accept the rules of the game of the American environment. They become Americans. However, if they come to do something else and to turn America to an Islamic country, this is when America should stand up and send them back to where they came from, so they can feel much more comfortable in their own societies as Muslims. Just like what should happen with the Israelis who come to divert America to Zionism, or the Chinese to communism. The same thing should be applied on everyone who comes to America in order to change it. And this is actually the second note. Now let's look at the real issue. What hijra, as they say in Arabic, immigration, means in the Middle East. The way how to look at things in the Middle East is the first way is to check the Islamic sources, how they describe something, in order to understand what's their attitude to that issue. And here, let's make a little comparison. The Jewish calendar starts, according to our belief, with the creation. Because according to the Jewish belief, the creation was the most important thing which happened to the world. So since we believe that God said, let there be light, we start the history. It happened some thousands of years ago, depends how you interpret it. Yes, never mind. But this is I would say the Archimedes point where history starts, the creation. Because we see the world as something which God created, and this is why we start counting the history from that minute. Christianity starts its history, or the counting history, from the day which Jesus Christ was circumcised. because somebody who was born in the 25th of December, this is the first day, 26, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31st. So January 1st is his 8th day. The day which, according to the Jewish law, a boy, healthy boy, is being circumcised. Okay, now, what's the idea? He became a full Jew. And since Christianity, at least part, sees itself as a real Judaism, so since Jesus Christ became a full Jew by being circumcised, history can begin at the 1st of January when he was circumcised. Okay, so this is the most important event in the world's history, since when we can start counting the days until 2016 as it is today. When it comes to Islam, and we see when do they start to count history, we find amazingly that not from the day which Muhammad was born in the year of 570 CE, more or less, not from the time which he started to be a prophet in 610 CE, more or less. They start counting the history from the hijra, from the minute which he emigrated from Mecca to Medina. It was like 12 years after he became a prophet, according to their belief. Means that his birth is not so important. The beginning of the revelation means the discovering of the deity of the one God, Allah, was not important enough. What is important is his immigration from Mecca to Medina. Why? Why is this so important for Muslims more than his birth and even the beginning of his revelation? In Mecca, in the first 12 years of his prophecy, since he started to be a prophet, he was persecuted. He was viewed as a lunatic. You know, we say there is no prophet in his hometown. You cannot be, because everybody knows you, since you were running around with diapers. So now became a prophet? Excuse me? Okay, this is why you cannot be. You cannot be a prophet in your hometown. Okay, so not only this, he in his hometown in Mecca in the first period of his life as a prophet, he tried to convince the Meccans, his cousins and his tribe, to abandon their idols and idolatries, to stop burying daughters alive, to stop cheating in commerce, to become more moral, to fear Allah, the only Allah which they knew about but they didn't believe in him, to be afraid of the day of judgment, that the punishment will come because of their behavior, especially because they are burying daughters alive and so forth. So they didn't like him because of his preachings, because of the way which he treated them, which he related to them, and like 3 or 4 times they tried to kill him. So this and the number of people who converted to Islam during this period was very small number, some dozens of people. I would say, the success was very limited of Muhammad for 12 years of trying to convert people to Islam between 610 and 622. And then he ran away to Medina, the immigration. And there he became something totally different. At the beginning he became a judge because he was a foreigner. And as a stranger he doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know this from there, this from that one. Means he doesn't know who is the honorable man, who is the not so honorable. So he could be an honest judge. So he became a judge. Then he became the mayor of his quarter. Then he became the mayor of the whole city. Then he became the ruler of the city. Means, from somebody who is persecuted, almost murdered in Mecca, He became a statesman. He became an emperor. He became a ruler. And he became a commander of an army. Means force in his hand. Definitely, he was upgraded by the immigration. But actually, the immigration opened the gates for him to become something much more influential, much more meaningful, and much more one who will be remembered forever. This is why the immigration in his life is viewed as much more important even than the beginning of the prophecy and even of his birth. The immigration, because it's opened the gates of the whole world in front of him, his religion, his community, his ummah, his nation. This is why Muslims begin their history from the minute of the hijra, of the immigration. This was much more important than anything else. Now, this is one thing. Second thing is that the Prophet Muhammad, in the Islamic thought, is viewed as the perfect man. A man who could not make any mistake. Infallible, as they say, ma'soom in Arabic. Because he was guided by Allah. Everything, all his paths were enlightened by Allah. Therefore, he couldn't make any mistake. All his behaviors are the example or role model for every Muslim in every place, in every time, and in every situation. This is why the history of Muhammad is so important for Muslims, and because they learn from his own history how to behave and how to react to all kinds of situations in life, wherever they are and whenever they live. And they derive from his behaviors the way how they should behave. Now, if we say that the immigration is the most important thing which happened to his life, in his life, happened to him, so what is the conclusion which every Muslim should derive immediately? Same thing. That if you live in your hometown, you are persecuted, you are almost murdered, you are in the margin, you are almost nothing. But if you emigrate to other places, you become something much more meaningful, much more serious, because the gates of other places will be open in front of you. And this is different, totally different from our kind of thinking about immigration. Why? Usually in our thinking, if your hometown or home environment gives you 4 major elements of your life